as I walked up to the cliff, I looked out to the mountains for one last time, and as I was about to throw myself off, the clouds parted, the sun shone on me, and my late nana, who is my guardian angel, spoke to me and said, "Adam, stop, step back, make a phone call." And it was that moment of clarity that I needed, that I stepped back from the edge and made a phone call to a mate, and he talked me down for 4.5 hours.
An overweight redhead with ADHD, learning difficulties, and no self-confidence, Adam Blum was always an easy target. Ridiculed by the bullies who called him Blum, Adam was tormented and belittled from the moment he started school all the way into his 20s. The way Adam used to see life, he was a victim, desperately yearning for a different life, but believing he was powerless to create it. For decades, Adam believed all the nasty voices telling him he was useless, including his own, and it almost killed him. But Adam chose to change the narrative, and although he's tried and failed many times on the journey to becoming Adam 2.0, he's never given up. I've just read his book. You can find that and the link to his podcast, True Blue Conversations, in the show notes. This is Adam Blum's story. Welcome to Young Blood, the award-winning volunteer podcast dedicated to young men's mental health. My name's Callum McPherson, I'm a journalist, and this is a platform for everyday men to share lived experience stories and show that no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. Suicide is the #1 killer of young people, and changing that starts with speaking up. So let's do it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss a thing. Help us reach more people by taking 10 seconds to give the show a rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you've got some feedback on this conversation, I'd love to hear it. You can vote in the poll and leave a comment on every Spotify episode. I read them all. This show touches on some tough topics that may provoke strong emotions. If you find anything in this chat distressing, please do whatever you need to do to look after yourself. Adam, September 14, 2014, take us through that day.
So that day was the day that I wanted to end my life. And so a lead up to that day, I was working away in my construction job, and my boss came up to me at 3:00 in the afternoon. I was 130 kilos at that time, and he just came up to me, called me a liar, a bludger, and a thief. And that catastrophically broke my soul. I was already in a dark place. And we talk about the mental fog that we have when people are suffering from mental health. And I had that fog, and the fog cleared the moment that he said those 3 words to me. And that was it. I decided that I was going to end my life that day and that afternoon. And I went and parked the water cart up, got in my car, and I drove past my home and drove up to a lookout, and there was no one around. It was a dark, gloomy afternoon, and I put my wallet and my keys on the bonnet of my car, and I was at total peace. I was peace. I knew what I was about to do, and there was a calmness that I'd never felt or experienced, and I knew exactly what I was about to do. And as I walked up to the cliff, I looked out to the mountains for one last time, and as I was about to throw myself off, the clouds parted, the sun shone on me, and my late nana, who is my guardian angel, spoke to me and said, "Adam, stop, step back, make a phone call." And it was that moment of clarity that I needed, that I stepped back from the edge and made a phone call to a mate, and he talked me down for 4.5 hours.
And were you a religious man then? That's an incredible moment.
Yeah, I am. I've always been. I'm very faithful, and there's certain things that I can't explain if I didn't have faith, and certain things have happened in my life that if I didn't have my faith, I probably wouldn't be here today. And it is. Yeah, very much. I would put it down to a hand of God, and my late nana was there to save my life.
Tell us about that conversation with your mate on the phone.
I remember parts of it. So I remember the start of it, and I remember the end of it. I don't remember the middle of it, but I remember the start. And I rang him and I said, "G'day, Mick," and he goes, "Bloom Dog," because that was my nickname at high school. And he said, "How are you, brother?" And I said, "I'm not good. I'm standing on the edge of a cliff about to throw myself off and end my life. And he could tell in the seriousness of my voice that I wasn't joking and that I was going to go through with it. And he just said to me, talk to me, tell me what's wrong and tell me why you've got to this point. And I told him, and then he just listened, and he really listened to what I was saying. And I really felt that there was no judgment, and that's why I made that phone call to him. There was no judgment, and he just listened to what I had to say. And at the end of the conversation, he said to me that, you should be here. Your life is worth living. Everybody loves you, and you need to get some help. And he asked me where I was, and I didn't tell him where I was. And he said, "Do you promise you'll get help?" And I said, "Yeah, I will. I'll go." And I went home after the call, and I didn't tell my parents where I was. I didn't tell them what I did. And the next day, I went to the doctors and was told that I had severe depression and severe anxiety. I did the mental health assessment, and then started a long process of finding the right psychologist. And I use the analogy, finding the right psychologist is like speed dating. You go, oh, we might have a coffee date. Oh, no, you're not for me. Oh, you might be for me. Oh, no, you're not for me. And then you finally find the right one and go, actually, we will have a coffee date. And that was, I found mine after 3 years. And I walked in, and he was blunt, straight to the point, and it's what I needed to hear. It was the shock and awe, and I needed to hear it because everyone else was just ticking boxes and just they weren't getting to the root cause of what the problems were, and he did, and started the long journey back to where I am today.
Yeah, I think it's valuable for people to hear what your mate had to say on the phone in that circumstance, because we all might end up in that situation, and it can be very confronting and a shock and difficult to know what to say. I think the key point there was he listened to you and reiterated that you were loved and you were valued, and you did need to be here, and people would miss you, and then gave you some action or suggested that you go and get some help. But I think the most important thing is that he listened to you first and let you know that you were valued and cared about in that moment, and that had a huge amount to do with saving your life. So I think that's really valuable for people to think about if they ever end up in that situation themselves. And then I am keen to talk about finding a psychologist and the speed dating aspect of that as well. But just first, I'd like to know, what was the story that you were telling yourself on September 14? What was the narrative in your head about your life and where you were at and where you were going?
Yeah, so I was bullied from the age of 6, from when I was diagnosed with ADHD. And in 2024, it's not a big deal, but it is as big as what it was 25 years ago. And I carried that through my whole life. I was told that I'd amount to nothing from my year 6 teacher. I was told that from high school teachers. I was told that in the workforce. I was told by my colleagues that, you're such a waste of space. Why are you even here? The world would be a better place if you weren't in it. And my boss just added to that. And it was a compiling thing that just kept happening and kept building and building. And his 3 words that I just believed what he was saying. I believed that I believed that I was useless. I really did. I believed that I couldn't amount to anything in life because everything was a struggle to that point. And to hear those, that I was a liar, a bludger, and a thief, he attacked my integrity that day. And that was what I was thinking was, how dare you attack my integrity? And I think that was the moment that I just went, you know what? I'm done. I'm done on earth. I'm done here. This is it. I'm finished. See you later. And yeah, that's how I was feeling. Honestly, I felt like an absolute failure. I really did. I felt like it just compounded and compounded to the point where I just went, I'm done. And he thinks this, the whole world thinks this. So see you later.
And that was the culmination of a lifetime of torment from the time you started school well into your 20s. Can you talk about some of those instances of bullying over the years and what was done to you and how it made you feel?
Yeah, so so I was a redheaded kid with freckles. And so straight away, regardless of having ADHD with learning difficulties, I was ostracized and bullied because of that. I was called a ranger. I was called the freckle-faced fart machine from Kmart, which makes no sense. To this day, it's a chapter in the book which I laugh at now, but back then that really hurt. I was told that I was the ugliest person that had walked this earth in a bar by a shallow girl. That
Sorry. Adam,
and
sorry, mate. My producer's obviously a bully. He's laughing at freckle-faced fart machine from Kmart pretty hard in the background there. So we can tell what kind of kid he was at school. Anyway, go on.
That's all right, mate. I laugh
control
at
yourself,
it now too,
Rory.
mate.
Did he? That guy never explained that nickname though, did he? It was just
No.
especially the Kmart bit. It was what?
Yeah, it should be Target. So because Target was the dot. So
right,
So I don't understand the Kmart thing, but anyway, that's what they called me, mate. And it did it. I didn't have the resilient shield that I have today, and I didn't have the intellect either. I allowed it to happen because my brain was a lot slower. I just would cop it. I wasn't gifted at sport. I wasn't very well liked because I was different, and I am still different to this day, and I'm unique. And being unique, we should be like today. We embrace that. As back, when I was a kid and going through my high school years, that wasn't embraced. It was you're out there, you're a weirdo. And yeah, I because I was fat, like I was, 120 kilos, I was an easy target, as is the title of my book. And it just kept, as I say, compounding and being told that you're worthless. You get to a point in your life where you go, you know what? It must be true. What people are saying must be true. And that's what it was, mate. I just got to that point and just went, you know what? This is it. I'm checking out. And I know there'd be a lot of people who listen to this that they're in a similar path. They just go, you know what? And on reflection now, 10 years with the work that I've done and all the development and self-development that I've invested in, I'm often asked, did I want to kill myself? And on reflection now, 10 years on, no, I didn't. I just wanted the pain to stop. That's inevitably what it was. And if you asked a lot of people who have taken their lives, well, we can't because they're gone, but people who do survive suicide attempts, you ask them, did they want to kill themselves? And majority of people that I know who have struggled as well have said, no, we just wanted the pain to stop.
Yeah, and that's been the same for many men that I've had on the podcast. And I think it is a very common experience and difficult for people to understand if they've never been suicidal. But as you said, it's not about wanting to die. It's about not being able to cope with the level of distress and not being able to see a way out of it and have that forward-thinking perspective. And of course, the great tragedy of suicide being that it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem, because you did fortunately survive that day and have survived to become a very different man, and you wouldn't have otherwise, like so many others. So yeah, you're a great example of what can happen. Can you explain, Adam, the victim mindset that you had for many years there? Because although it's very understandable that you would believe all those people saying such horrible things to you for such a long time, you also played a part in making yourself a target with the mindset that you had.
Yeah, so I played the victim for a long, long time, and I hated the world. I hated what was happening. I hated that, the world owed me everything and I owed the world nothing. And, I blamed my parents. I blamed the ADHD. I blamed, at 27, I was diagnosed with binocular vision. So there's another disability that I had as well. So I blamed that. And it was just a culmination of things that I was just, and until I realized that the victim mentality, people get very tired of it after a while. They get tired of hearing the victim mentality and they go, oh, and I started to lose a lot of friends, and I started to realize and I looked in the mirror one day and went, there's got to be more than that. Like I've got to be more than this. Like there's got to be a way to turn this around. And I started just implementing small things to change that victim mentality, because I was absolutely playing the victim, and I'm not a victim. Now I'm not a victim at all. And I will not play the victim at all anymore. What's happened in my life has got me to where I am today. And I've gone from the victim mentality of surviving, merely just existing in life, to now thriving in life, to know that I'm here to help others. And it's a small change, but you implement the small changes, and it is, trying to change who you are, and the environment that you're in is very hard to do, and it took a long time. But now as I say, I am not a victim at all, mate. Not at all. I am, the victim mentality died that day on the cliff, and the new Adam 2.0 was born, and the thriving in life is the new way for me now. I'm not a victim.
Well, you said a small change, but it's a drastic change overall. On reflection, you obviously knew that the victim mindset didn't serve you from an early age, yet you carried it for decades there before you gradually woke up to the fact that you could be something different. But while you were staying stuck in that mindset, I'm just trying to understand it a bit better. Was there something in it for your ego and your identity attaching to that? Were you, on reflection, what were you getting out of being a victim? Although you might not have realized at the time that perhaps, I don't know, made you feel like you, or I'm not quite sure how to explain it, but is there something in it?
Yeah. So I guess it's really hard one to answer, because I think I was lost in that sense of that victim mentality, and I got lost in that character of my life, if that answers the question. Like I got lost in the sense of, well, this is how life is. This is how it's always going to be. And I think, there was no self-belief. I had no purpose. I had no vision. I didn't have any, I had no self-esteem. And that's what I attached my victim mentality to, that I had no self-esteem. There was nothing there. There was, and it was just easy to play that role, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I ask because sometimes people who will maintain a certain mindset or an approach to life, even when it's not serving them, whether it be being a victim or being just someone who's mean and it brings other people down, like many of the bullies that you came into contact with, they might not be aware of it, but they're doing it because there's a certain safety or a comfort to being used to being that kind of person. And you might not even realize how much it's dragging you down, and that you don't have to be like that if you get used to it. So I just think it's interesting psychologically. What do you think that you really needed throughout your life that you didn't get? Because you do have a good family and lots of people who loved you and cared. So what was it that wasn't there that could have been there?
I think it was the way that my body image was. So I'd blown out to 166 kilos, and I'd always struggled with my weight. And when I was at my lowest point, I always envisioned that I would be 95 kilos, pretty muscly like yourself, like pretty toned.
Thanks, mate.
And yeah,
very sweet of you.
And I think, it was what I was seeing in the mirror to what I had in my head. And that was where my psychologist told me that, Adam, if you lose the weight, your life will change. And that is what it was. That's exactly what happened. I lost 66 kilos in 5 years and my life changed. And that's what it was. It was what I was seeing in the mirror was not what I was seeing in my head. And that is, back then, if I had have got onto that earlier and had have, like, actually had have made and taken action to implement the changes to become the better version of myself, I think I might have been able to catch it before I got to that cliff. I'm not actually sure, but it's part of the journey, I guess, and it's part of where I've got to today. So I think I had to go through that in order to get to where I am today.
Well, there's certainly a lot to be said for how we feel inside manifesting in our physical body, and then that feedback between the two. And then obviously how the outside world sees you as well, and makes comments based on that, especially kids being so ruthless. I mean, if you're overweight going through school, especially when I was going through school, yeah, you and a redhead and learning difficulties and all of this, I mean, you were the quintessential easy target, as the title of
Yeah.
your book. I mean, your story and no one's story, I don't think, is as simple as, oh, if you lost weight, then your whole life would be perfect. But I suppose the weight and how you looked, representing the way that you felt inside, and your self-esteem and your self-respect, which you had to build through effort over a lot of years and a lot of trial and error. And so, yes, you're a much slimmer man and who's also happy, but the reality, other than being healthier, which is really important, the reality of why you're much happier is because you now have self-respect and self-esteem and self-confidence. And with that has come losing weight, but it's also come through the fire of going through challenges and actually taking action and not giving up and becoming this person. And that's really the most important part of it. But we're talking about quite a long timeline here. So there was your attempts, and then you went to the doctor straight away. And then in your book, you said 5 years later, you hadn't killed yourself, but you were still feeling shit. You were still overweight. You were still lost, didn't know where you were going. So I think people think, okay, the general story goes, I was really down in the dumps. I almost took my own life. Then I didn't. Then I got help, and then I was fixed, right? So
Yeah.
that's not what's happened here, and it's never really that straightforward and that black and white. So can you just take us through the fact that you were still feeling shit years later and how you managed to build from there?
Yeah. So you mentioned, as you say, in 2019, I was still at a low point in my life, and I was seeing the psychologist, and he said to me, right, we've dealt with your childhood trauma. We've dealt with the early part of your adolescence. Mate, the elephant's still in the room, your weight. If you lose weight, your life will change. He said, I'll keep taking your money, Adam, but until you get that through your head that if you lose weight, your life will change. And it took me a while to comprehend that and compartmentalize what he was saying. And I was still, so I was, I was feeling like we dealt with the childhood trauma, we dealt with everything, and I was starting to feel, a little bit better, but I still knew that there was more to be done. And then I went and saw the doctor, and they said no to, like, I'd been exercising, couldn't shift the weight, and my first doctor said, no, I'm not going to let you go and see a surgeon. You're too young. And then I went, okay, I'm going to go and get a second opinion. And then a doctor who'd seen me all my life said, Adam, I know you've struggled with your mental health, and I know you've struggled with your weight. She said, I think this is going to be the best thing that you ever do. And so I went and saw the specialist, and I've never felt, oh, well, it's probably the second lowest I've ever felt up to the suicide attempt. I walked into his office, he did some blood tests, and he said, wow, I said, Adam, really glad you're seeing me, actually. I said, oh, why is that, doc? And he goes, mate, your blood sugar level's 38. He said, a normal blood sugar level is between 5 and 7. And he said, if you keep going the way you're going, he said, you'll be dead by 34. And I was 27 at the time. And he said, you got two choices. You can either have the operation, or you can keep living your life the way you live now, and you'll be dead by 34. And I walked out of that office feeling like the biggest piece of shit that had ever walked this earth. I felt almost as low as I was when when I was there in 2014, and I think it was at that moment I decided that I'd been given a second chance, and I was really blowing that second chance. And it was that moment that I went, well, Adam, you've got a choice. And I chose to fight back and I chose to live. And it was that moment that I went, I'm going to have this gastric sleeve surgery. And I faced a lot of criticism for that. Like I got a lot of people said you cheated. And no, I didn't cheat. It saved my life. And it was a tool to help me get to where I want to be and a better version of myself. So whenever someone tells me that I cheat, I said, well, that's your opinion, but I actually saved my life. And that was the moment that I really decided that that was it, and that I was going to turn my life around and start really changing my life for the better. And yeah, there was just a determination that and that determination has stayed with me since that day. And I just now know why I'm here. And I just continually every day strive to be a better version of myself. And I turn up every day, and it's a daily renewable contract now that every day that I get on this earth, it's a privilege and a blessing to age. So I'm here, and as long as I'm shifting 2 millimeters forward every day, I'm better than the day before. So that's essentially where it started.
And not shifting 2 millimeters forward on the waistline either.
Correct. Training 6 days a week, mate. So
good
yes.
stuff. That's the way. So I think people listening might think, why could you never stick to healthy eating and training? You know, I bet you weren't getting out and running or going to the gym or whatever and just being disciplined. I think a pretty common comment from people would be, oh, well, you know, why wouldn't you just change your habits? Why couldn't you just change your behavior? Why do you have to have surgery? So what was your answer to that?
Well, habits are a thing, aren't they? That if you come from like a family of people that are like exercise, it's part of your life. It's part of your routine. It's part of who you are. You get disciplined. You train. I didn't have that. I played sport, and but my problem was I had a grazing problem. So I would just keep eating and comfort eating because my self-esteem was so low. So I kept eating. It was never an issue of that. I would still train, but I would just get to a point where I'd be so tired, and things would start to hurt. So because I was carrying the extra weight, so then I'd stop training, and then I'd just keep eating
and you're more prone to injuries as well. Like you just hurt yourself, and you might get a big rush of motivation and race out and do something, and then hurt yourself, and then you're back to square one. And it sounds like eating was your main coping mechanism too.
It was, mate. Yeah, it was. And yeah, it was just a habit that formed, that just continual habits. It's like a drug. It's like a drug addict. When they go and like they have a hit for the first time and they go, oh, wow, that was really good. I'll have that again because I want that rush. I was the same with food and also drugs as well. I use drugs. I turned to drugs, and I slided into using drugs for, right before I attempted suicide. I was partying hard every weekend it was just, I had a taste, liked it, and went, cool, this makes me feel amazing. I feel absolutely unreal. Yeah. And yeah, habits are a hard thing to break.
But they were both of those vices there, that was about escapism, wasn't it? I mean, you wouldn't have been 100%. Conscious of it at the time. But even the rampant eating, that's about zoning out. Like while you're doing it, you're probably watching TV or whatever it is, just forgetting your problems. And then going out, which is the experience of so many young people. You go out, you're drinking, you can be part of this sort of surreal scene where for those 6 hours, you're not who you are the rest of the time, and then throw pills into the mix there, and you get a taste for doing that. And that's the only time during the week where you feel good about yourself, and you feel terrible and even worse now the rest of the time because of come downs and everything else, and your terrible diet. And then it's hard to get off that train where you think, well, I'm not going to miss out on those 6 to 10 hours where I feel where I feel good. But of
Yep.
course, then you have the come down, you feel way worse. And I'm sure that was instrumental in your mind state at that point too, because the hole that leaves you in is not easy to dig yourself out of every week.
Well, as you read, mate, there was a $6,000 partying session in the Greek islands. So
That sounded like a good night.
it was a great night. It was a lot of Belvedere vodka and bottles of Moe running along the
So
bar.
you were standing on the bar with a 3 liter bottle of vodka, and you were just pouring it on the crowd, and then buying bottles of champagne, shooting those on the crowd. And then I loved how the next day you got the bill and you were shocked, and you thought it would be $600, but it was 6,000. I think you're lucky it wasn't 60,000, mate. Having been to Europe myself.
Yeah, mate, it was a wild time, and the boys were with me going. They were laughing as they said, "Nah, mate, it was you. That's how much." And I had to cut my holiday short because
that was the end of your holiday.
That was the end of my holiday, mate, because I had to ask Mum to pay for my plane ticket home because that one night, and I tell kids now on when I talk to them, here's how not to spend $6,000. But it was a great night. It was a great party.
Well, it's memorable. It's a story that you'll be able to keep telling. I suppose that's actually ended up being one of the positive experiences, not particularly the other ones that we're talking about. But that's a common experience that lots of us have, especially in the early 20s, experimenting with some of that stuff, and you either get away from it and you end up being all right, or you don't. And I don't think that many people actually end up regretting it too much, as long as you're able to be lucky enough to get away with it.
Yeah,
but I think just the impact that it has on your mindset can't be understated, though. When you don't have that, you're already feeling down the dumps, you're already not exercising, you already got poor habits, and then you pour on top of that not having any serotonin. That doesn't help.
No, and that's right, mate. And now I've realised that as I've gotten older, it's 10 years on since that day, and I don't need any of that anymore. I'm happy in life now, so I don't need any of that. I've grown and matured, and I've just become a better version of myself now, and it was a part of my life that in your early 20s, as you say, mate, you're young and think you're invincible and want to party, and as you say, those 10 hours was amazing, but the next day and then the next week was it was hell. I was back to where I once was, and
I think we all want to get to a place where we enjoy every day of the week, hopefully, because there's a better return on investment there, isn't there? So with the gastric banding surgery, and I think the comment that you cheated is just absurd, because your other option was potentially dying. So cheated what? I think the result is the important thing at that point. But that surgery is not to be underestimated either. That's a serious undertaking. I think there's quite a high risk of complications, something like 1 in 1,000, and then the recovery from it's really rough as well. So just for anyone who's might be overweight and might think, oh, that sounds easy, I'll whip over to the doctor and get booked in for that. Can you just give us an understanding of the reality of that procedure?
Yeah, it was the hardest 5 months of my life afterwards. I honestly, when I had the surgery, I woke up after the surgery, and the gases that they pumped in, it was I cringe now, the worst pain I've ever had in my life. It was just, I honestly thought, and when I had to learn to eat again, because you have to learn to basically, you go on a liquid diet for 2 weeks, then you go to soft pureed food, then you go to soft foods with a little bit of, like, you can't eat much, and if you overeat, then you unfortunately you throw up, and it's terrible. Honestly, it was the worst 5 months of my life. It was, I can't explain the pain that I had, the complications that I had. I had all 5 side effects that you have. So I had gas, I had diarrhea, vomiting, I had headaches. It was bad. It was and I say it to anyone who is going to go down that path, be absolutely certain it's what you want, because it's very hard. It was a hard road back. And then at the 6-month mark, it was like a light bulb switched and I could start eating things. It was weird. Like one day I woke up and that was it. It was just, oh, I can eat this now. Oh, but yesterday I couldn't eat that, but today I can. Like it's just, you have to learn, basically. You have to learn to eat again, basically. And I was 27 at the time. So, you learn what you can and what you can't eat. So, yeah, it was a very, very hard time.
Yeah. So that's a real drastic option to take, and it made a massive difference. It seems like it's definitely what you needed, but it wasn't everything, was it? Because there was a little bit later on, you started putting weight on again. Your mum was having a crack at you for plumping up again, and then you still have to get your exercise right, watch what you eat. It's not a silver bullet.
No, that's right, mate. It's not a silver bullet, and that was on advice from a dietitian actually that I started to put weight back on. So then I went and found a nutritionist that actually helped me drop another 25 kilos. So and now I just maintain, and now I'm at a good healthy weight that I can maintain. And yeah, it's not the silver bullet, but the second time I knew that I needed to change my approach to how I was eating, and also I started to gain knowledge around what I could and couldn't put in my body. And knowledge is power, isn't it? Really, when we think about it, knowledge is power. So that's what I started to do. I started to really deep dive into what I could and couldn't eat, and what my body needed, because everyone's body's different. Everybody's body is unique and how it works, and some people like some things and others like others. But that's what it was, mate. It was just getting educated, better educated on what I could eat and what I couldn't eat.
And how much weight have you managed to keep off since you were at your heaviest?
So I've now lost 65 kilos. So
Wow.
yeah, and since the operation, I'm down to 95 kilos now.
Okay, so you must be happy with yourself now, right?
Yeah, double digits is great, mate. I cried the very first time that I hit double digits. It was it was very emotional, because I haven't been double digits since I was in, probably, I'd say I would have been about maybe 11 or 12. So it was a long time. Yeah. And I cried when I hit double digits.
Yeah, and I suppose that's because of what it represents to yourself, and it's a goal that you set, that you've worked hard for, more than the weight itself.
100%. And I'm all about goal setting now. Goal setting is huge in my life, and it's got me to where I am today.
What else have you decided to delete from your life?
I've deleted negative people. So I deleted people that don't want to see me grow. And you read it in the book. I talk about my tribe, and my tribe are people that are positive and only want to see me succeed. And they are people that I trust with my life, and they are people that they just prop me up to be the best version of myself and keep me accountable. And I talk about my mentors. I talk about, my best friends. I talk about people that just want to help, my coaches, like my fitness coach, my mentor, my coach, my self-development coach. These are the people that I have got in my life now. And I just, like, positivity attracts positivity, negativity attracts negativity. And I don't have time for negativity in my life anymore. When I hear it, I go, yeah, no, I've got to get rid of that out of my life. And I only like positive, influential people now that only want to see me be the best version of myself.
You're not watching the news?
No, I don't watch the news, mate. I don't watch the news. I don't read the news. I don't, because my mentors, when I started to change, they said, don't watch the news. It's all negative. It's all negative bullshit. And it's only what they want you to see. And that was it. I turned it off, and I haven't watched the news for 5 years now. And I don't miss it. I really don't.
It's been a rough 5 years too. So, there's been some tough stuff going on.
Yeah, that's right. But no, I don't miss it. I really don't. I don't miss it. And if it's important, I'll hear about it. If it's not important, Well, if it doesn't affect my family or my friends, it doesn't matter, and,
Yeah.
and that's been a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. Well, just seeing constant negativity every day when it's something overseas or closer to home that you can't have any influence over, but you're beaming it into your head and it's giving you this picture of how dark and terrible the world is, and that's what you're thinking, it's going to trigger an anxious response and it's not going to do anything positive for you. So I think there's a lot to be said for switching off, maybe not all the time, but certainly not feeling like you need to consume it all the time either. I'm interested in your perspective on coaching because you're a man who's done a lot of therapy, a lot of psychologists gone through the whole process, put a huge amount of effort into that. But then it seems like you've also got a lot out of the coaching side of things. And I'll be honest, from seeing coaching material on social media and some of the types that get into that line of unregulated work, I sort of see a lot of room for people to be charlatans, but clearly you've gotten a lot out of it. So can you just talk about that versus traditional therapy and the benefit for you?
Yes, and great point you touch on, mate. There are a lot of coaches out there that are just cashing in and don't care about they don't care about their clients. I've been very blessed in every single coach that I've had has only had my best interest at heart, and I still work with three of them today. So I'm a man that I go with my gut, and I say this to anyone, trust your gut, because your gut is 99% of the time it is right. And
Yeah, I
if
believe
it
that.
doesn't feel right, don't do it. And with me, my coaches and I have just connected on a level they're not there to take my money. They are there to actually see me grow into the best version of myself with whether it be my fitness coach, whether it be my mentor Joe, my other mentor Janine, and also my speaking coach as well. We are like, I know that they have got my back 100%, and and as you say, there are sharks out there that will just go for an easy, oh, we see the people, we don't care.
Manipulate.
We'll
Yeah.
just take their money. And there are a lot of coaches out there that you need to be, they're not doing it for the right. My coaches actually do it because they want to see you be the best version of yourself. And I'm the same, mate. I'm going into coaching and I only want to help people. I don't want to take their money, and it's got to be the right fit, because if it's not the right fit, I'm sorry, I've got plenty of other people that I can go and help that actually really need that help.
How do you put into words what that gives you versus traditional therapy?
I think it's just having them believe in me. So like the constant support and belief in what I'm trying to achieve that's from the coaching. Is like the psychologist, like I still go and see my psychologist every 3 months, and it's great. Like I call it the oil change and the rotation of the tires. And I go and see him every 3 to 6 months. And he's great to just get perspective and a different perspective than my coaches who know me and who have really become close to me. It's great to have the difference in the coaches believe, but I still go to my psychologist just to have that the unbiased like opinion, and the person who doesn't know me, like, and we're not friends. He's there to help me. So if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, cool. I just wanted your perspective on that because it's not often that I meet someone who's done the traditional route and then also done the coaching route and benefited from both. So I just think that's interesting. And I know podcasting's a big part of your life, as it is mine. And well done on getting over 100 episodes, because I know it's no mean feat. It's one thing to start something, but it's another to keep it going. What's podcasting done for you?
Mate, it's been the greatest thing that I've achieved. Actually, I almost cried at my book launch when someone asked me what the podcast has done for me. It's allowed me to share veterans and first responders stories, and also inspirational people's stories. And it's allowed me to share parts of my story as well in my lived experience. And the veterans that I've met, the people that I have met through the podcast, and as you say, you know the stats on this. A podcast is the average life of a podcast is 7. And if you're still around after 21 episodes, you're part of 1% in the world. So and there's that many podcasts that are around. Like, as you say, I've recorded over 110 episodes now. And yeah, it's a big time commitment. It really is. But like without the podcast, I would never have got Mark Wales to write the foreword for my book. I never would have got Joanna Griggs to write a testimonial, same as Amelia Adams, Paul DeGelder, Damien Tomlinson, Deborah Knight. They were just some of the people that wrote testimonials for my book. And without the podcast, if I had reached out to them, they would have been like, yeah, cool, thanks, mate. Yeah, see you later. As the podcast has given me some, well, as we say, it's street cred, and people can see what I've done. And yeah, so the podcast has been the greatest thing and it's, apart from the book, it's probably my greatest achievement of my life.
Beautiful, mate. Yeah, I feel the same way. And how about the Rural Fire Service? You're working there now?
Yeah. So I've been a volunteer for 13 years. And I've been a paid staffer for nearly 3.5 years. And it's given me purpose. It's given me direction at a time when I needed to find some direction because I had no direction. And there's nothing better than, serving your community and putting your life on the line to save others. It's pretty rewarding, and I love it. I've really enjoyed giving back, and it's probably one of the best things that I've ever done in my life is join the RFS and really, help others. That's why we're all here. At the end of the day, we're all here to help others and try and inspire others to be the best version of themselves, but also be our own best version as well. And the Fire Brigade is definitely it. Without it, I don't know where I'd be. So yeah, it's definitely been an absolute honour and a privilege to keep doing what I do and serving and helping my community and my state.
Well, thank you for your service, mate. I think that's a fantastic contribution. I'm sure it's a fair bit easier out there at 95 kegs than 150 odd. It must feel like you just lost a whole other person. I think another big part of this is self-talk. It struck me while reading your book that you'd come across a lot of bullies in your life, but at times the worst bully of all was you. It was you torturing yourself and the way you spoke to yourself. And how do you speak to yourself now?
Oh, mate, now I can actually look in the mirror and say, I love you. And that's not before anyone else can love you, you got to love yourself. And it sounds wanky, but honestly, like looking in the mirror and going, I love you. And, I'm not perfect because perfect doesn't exist. It really is a word that perfect doesn't, if we're aiming for perfection, it's not going to happen. It's perfection it doesn't exist. We can strive for excellence, but I've got flaws. I've still got flaws. I still, I want my body to be a little bit better than what it is now even still, I want to change my body. But all the years ago, I couldn't look in the mirror and say, I love you. And I rejected myself. And when you reject yourself, there's no coming back. That's rock bottom. And I did that in 2014. I rejected myself and I didn't love who I was. I couldn't say that I loved myself back then. And it's not an ego or it's not an arrogance attached to that. It's just, I know my self-worth now and I do. I love myself. I really do. I love how far I've come, the journey that it is to get to this point. And yeah, like I now look and go, yeah, I love you. I love the version of who you are. And, I'm striving to be a better version every single day. And it, as I said, it's a daily renewable contract. And every single day is another day that I get to better myself. And, sometimes we fall short and sometimes there are days that I still have off days but that's okay. I allow myself that day and then I I go, okay, all right, I want to get back to the good version of me, and I want to get back to the better frequency. So let's just allow myself to sit in this for a day, and then tomorrow the sun's going to rise, and I'm going to strive and go for back to the better version of myself. So yeah, mate, I do. I really do love myself.
Good man. Well, it's about that consistency, and also what came through strongly in your book is ultimately you can have all the help you want, but it's down to you, and ultimately it's going to be your responsibility. So your book is Easy Target, Taming the Black Dog. That is a great book. I've just read it. It's available in stores, and I'm sure people can find it online as well if they look it up, and we'll have it in the show notes. And where can people follow along with your podcast as well?
So it's on Apple, it's on Spotify, it's on YouTube, it's on Stitcher as well. And you can follow my socials. There's on Instagram, True Blue Conversations. You can follow my personal page, Adam Blum. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook, and that's where you'll find what I do and what I'm about, mate.
Well, Adam, congratulations, mate. Well done on the book. It's a really good read, and I think you're just a great example of keeping the faith no matter what happens, and being tested in lots of different ways, and being someone who easily could have given up along the way and would have had excuses for doing so, but you didn't throw in the towel, and now you've turned into someone who seems like they've lived a whole life, but is still only 31 years old with plenty of life ahead, and much better things ahead than what's behind. And that's what it's all about, mate. So thank you.
No, thanks, mate. And thanks for the, it's been an honor and a privilege to come on and share my story to help others. And I'll just leave you listeners with this, that it's not weak to speak. Speaking up takes courage, but speaking up can save your life. And it certainly saved my life. And you too can go from surviving to thriving in life. So, mate, that's, if anyone takes anything away from my story, is it's not weak to speak, and you're never alone. So, thank you. It's been an absolute honour and privilege, mate.
Perfect, mate. We'll leave it at that.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
That's it for this episode. If you like what we're all about, support us by following Young Blood Men's Mental Health on Instagram and Young Blood Mental Health on TikTok. Every podcast episode is recorded in professional quality video, and they're all up on our Young Blood Men's Mental Health YouTube channel. So please show some love and subscribe. Thanks to our local business supporters, NB&A Group and Pro Realty Property Consultants. You can find everything there is to know about the podcast at youngbloodmensmentalhealth.com. And most importantly, please share these stories with anyone in your life who needs to know they're not alone. We're all in this together. Catch you next time.